In Excel 2010, there was a new feature called Slicer, and it was designed only to work with pivot tables. In Excel 2013, we can now use the Slicer capability with tables, not just pivot tables, but tables. This data here on the worksheet called Appliance Sales Table is not a table yet, so we can't use slicers with it. So let's turn it into a table. In a nutshell, the Slicer feature is an enhancement to the filtering concept. So, clicking within the data, let's turn this into a table, this time perhaps by Control-T. Excel figures out the extent of the data properly. We click OK. Maybe the color scheme isn't that good. We'll go to Table Styles up in the Design tab and choose a different layout, perhaps this one. Now, I'm going to zoom back just a little bit because these slicers are going to take up some room. First of all, recognize we have filter arrows as we do with tables, and just a quick reminder here, if we only wanted to see data for the Northwest here, we'd click the arrow for region, unselect them all, choose Northwest, click OK. We're only seeing Northwest, and if we wanted to see Northeast, of course, we could choose that one. That's fine. And with regions, we have a pretty clear idea, not only what we're seeing here now, but what we're not seeing. But what if we were to choose just a couple of the salespersons here by way of filtering? Do we know which salespersons we're not seeing? Now, you'd have to know the data pretty well to always be clear as to what's visible and what's not. Same thing maybe with products, depending upon how many we have, and with customers. So filtering is a great tool, no question about it, but we're not always clear what we're not seeing while we're using that filter. Let's remove the filter. We can simply do this on the Data tab by choosing Clear. We've got all of our data back. Let's introduce slicers. Now, you will not see this feature unless the active cell is within a table. So Design tab, Insert Slicer. Let's insert a slicer for salesperson, product, region. We can add customer too. We don't need to do all these necessarily, but we'll do all of them here. Click OK. And we can redesign the shape of these so they fit on the screen more efficiently. That doesn't have to be as wide nor as tall, so do something like that. Slide it off to the right maybe. Same thing with region. And if need be, we can change the colors on these as well. They have their own tab up in the ribbon. Notice there's an Options tab right now. Here's one for product. That could be smaller too. Move it off to the right. And the one for salesperson involves 12 names recognized on the Options tab. There's even a choice out here for columns. Make it be 2 columns. Move this over. We'll make it a little bit shorter, but wider, and so on. Now, if we only want to see the data for the Northeast, click Northeast. Now, as we look at the data, we can zoom in a little bit now, although watch those slicer boxes over to the right. Might be a little, we might have to move them around a little bit to see everything. But recognize we're only seeing data for Northeast. You can look in column C and see that. And in the lower left corner, we see that we've got 229 of 909 records. Now, suppose we also want to see data from the Southeast. As I point to the SE here, if I were to click this, I would be choosing only Southeast as I deselect Northeast. But I'll hold down Control and click Southeast. And now we're seeing data for those 2 regions together, 458 records. Now, let's say we want to see all the products except television. They're all selected right now. I'll hold down the Control key and click Televisions. We're not seeing televisions. We're now down to 341 records. So not only are we clear on what we are seeing, by looking at the slicers, we're also made aware of what we are not seeing. Did you know those 5 products? Did you know there were only 5? And more likely, what if we were working with salespersons here? Maybe we only want to see the data for Willie Loman and Shelley Levine right here. Click those 2 names using the Control key, and now we're only viewing the data for those 2 people. But would you have known which names are not being shown right now? You certainly do when the slicers are visible. There is a problem sometimes with spacing. I don't think there's any direct way to make the text smaller, but you can, if you wish, click on each one of these as I'm doing here. For example, I've clicked the salesperson slicer, go to Options, and maybe we'll just make that be orange looking. Click here under Product, make that be green, and so on. Not critical, but helpful to differentiate these maybe. See what's happening there. Maybe zooming back a little bit might help too. So Take advantage of these. They give us a new tool for analyzing the data. And this is only available when we're working with tables like this, or if you've been working in pivot tables.